The conference room felt like a freezer. I sat across from Tiffany Moore, the new CEO of Virex Systems, watching her manicured fingers tap against the glass table. At 30 years old, she looked like she'd walked out of a business magazine cover, all designer suits and cold confidence. "Peter," she said, not even looking up from her phone, "we're restructuring the company for a more modern approach." My stomach dropped. 28 years at this company, 28 years building their cybersecurity empire from nothing. I'd fought in 2 wars before coming here, survived firefights in Afghanistan and Iraq, only to be ambushed in a conference room by this Ivy League princess treating me like expired milk. Her father had built this company from his garage. I'd been there from day 2, writing the first lines of code that would become Sentinel. Now his spoiled daughter was dismantling everything we'd created. "Your position is being eliminated," she continued, finally making eye contact. Her fiancé Chase sat beside her, arms crossed, smirking like he'd already won something. He looked barely old enough to shave, let alone run a cybersecurity division. "We appreciate your service." I kept my face neutral, but inside I was already planning. They thought they were firing Peter Daley. They had no idea they were unleashing him. "I understand," I said quietly, standing up. "I'll clean out my desk." Chase's smirk widened. He had no clue what was coming. 3 days later, I was sipping coffee on my lakehouse porch in Michigan when my phone buzzed. A message from my old system. "Unauthorized access detected. Sentinel core modified." I nearly choked on my coffee. Chase had actually done it. The crypto influencer with 0 cybersecurity experience had just touched the most critical code in the entire system. I opened my laptop and watched the chaos unfold in real time. Error logs flooded my screen like digital blood. The core logic script, worth $5 million in proprietary security protocols, was being deleted line by line. Each deletion was like watching someone tear pages from the Bible. "You idiot," I whispered. But I was smiling. Chase was trying to optimize code he couldn't even read. He thought he was deleting old garbage, but he was actually destroying the heart of Sentinel, the anti-fraud software that protected major banks across America. My phone buzzed again. Another alert. Then another. The cascade failure was beginning. The triggers I'd embedded years ago were all lighting up like Christmas trees. The honey tokens I'd hidden throughout the system were screaming warnings. Chase had just walked into every trap I'd ever set, and he didn't even know it. This was going to be beautiful to watch. The honey tokens weren't just alarms. They were my insurance policy. Years ago, when I first sensed the company was rotting from within, I'd embedded these digital traps throughout Sentinel's architecture. They were invisible to normal operations, but would activate the moment someone tried to tamper with critical code. Now, sitting in my quiet cabin, with morning sunlight streaming through the windows, I watched as every trigger fired at once. My screen lit up with data streams, audio feeds, and system logs. The honey tokens were recording everything. Every keystroke, every conversation, every panicked phone call. I heard Tiffany's voice through the live feed. "What do you mean the system is down? Fix it, Chase." "I'm trying," Chase shouted back, his voice cracking with panic. "This legacy code is a mess. It's like Peter booby-trapped everything." I chuckled, taking another sip of coffee. Smart boy. Too bad he figured it out too late. The beautiful part was that I hadn't just trapped the code. I'd trapped the entire company. Every secret conversation, every boardroom meeting, every desperate attempt to cover up their mistakes was being recorded and sent directly to my private server in the basement. They thought they'd fired their biggest threat. Instead, they activated their worst nightmare. Jules Martinez had been my protege for 3 years. Brilliant, dedicated, and loyal. Everything Chase wasn't. At 26, she had more cybersecurity knowledge in her pinky finger than Chase had in his entire head. When I saw her email alert pop up on my screen, my heart sank. She'd tried to warn Tiffany. Sent a detailed message explaining why Chase shouldn't touch Sentinel's core systems. She'd even included technical documentation proving how dangerous his optimizations could be. The email was professional, thorough, and completely ignored. Tiffany had deleted the email without reading it. Didn't even open the attachments. I watched through the security feed as Jules printed a copy of her warning and locked it in her desk drawer. Smart girl. She knew this was going to blow up, and she wanted proof. that she'd tried to stop it. Her face was pale with worry as she sealed the documents in an envelope. My phone buzzed with a text from Jules. "They won't listen." "I'm sorry, Peter. I tried." I texted back, "You did good, kid. Stay safe." But I was already planning how to use Jules's warning. When this house of cards collapsed, and it would collapse, I wanted everyone to know that people had tried to stop it. The blame would fall exactly where it belonged, on Tiffany and Chase. Chase was getting cocky. I watched him tweet from his verified account, "Day 3 of revamping Virex's outdated legacy systems. Amazing what you can accomplish when you're not afraid of change. Innovation, tech leadership, disrupt the norm." The irony was delicious. He had no idea that his innovation had just triggered the most sophisticated surveillance system in corporate history. Every time he touched the keyboard, I was watching. Every optimization he made was being recorded and analyzed by systems he couldn't even comprehend. But the best part was watching him ignore the system warnings. Red flags were popping up everywhere. Error messages, security alerts, performance warnings that would make any competent programmer stop immediately. Chase just kept deleting code, convinced he was making improvements. I opened another window and started patching Sentinel in real time from my own server. I couldn't let the system completely fail. Too many innocent people would suffer. Banks, hospitals, government agencies all relied on this software, but I could let Chase think he was in control while I quietly documented every mistake he made. My signature appeared in the logs as Warden 0. Chase saw it, but didn't understand what it meant. He just kept working, digging his own grave with every keystroke, completely oblivious to the digital trap closing around him. The thumb drive was hidden in the back of her father's desk drawer, behind old business cards and paper clips that hadn't been touched in years. Tiffany found it while cleaning out his office, probably looking for something valuable to sell or toss in the garbage. I watched through the security camera as she plugged it into her computer with annoyance, expecting more boring company documents. Her face went white as her father's voice filled the room, speaking from beyond the grave. "Tiffany, if you're watching this, I'm gone. And you've probably taken over the company. I need you to know something important. Peter Daley isn't just an employee. He's the heart of this company. Everything we've built, every success we've had, it all started with his work." The video continued for 10 painful minutes. Her father explained how Peter had built Sentinel from scratch, working 18-hour days in the early years, how he'd saved the company millions with his innovations, how he was supposed to be the next CEO, not her. Never her. "I know you're smart, sweetheart," her father's voice continued, "but you're not ready. Maybe someday, but not now. Promise me you'll listen to Peter. Promise me you'll learn from him." I watched Tiffany's hands shake as she ejected the drive and smashed it with a crystal paperweight. But she was too late. The video was already backed up on the server, and Jules had access to everything. The truth was out there now, and soon, everyone would know it. The FTC inquiry hit like a bomb exploding in slow motion. Banks started calling at all hours, clients were panicking, and Sentinel was failing every security test the government threw at it. I watched from my peaceful lakehouse as the company I'd spent 3 decades building crumbled under Chase's stunning incompetence. That's when I decided to send my first message as Warden 0. Bank of America received an encrypted email at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time. Inside was a complete breakdown of Chase's sabotage. Time-stamped logs showing exactly when he deleted critical code, before and after comparisons proving the system had been deliberately destroyed, and ironclad proof that the original code had been replaced by an unqualified amateur. The email also contained something else, a patched version of Sentinel that actually worked better than the original, complete with enhanced security features I'd been developing in my spare time. By noon, Bank of America had terminated their contract with Virex and implemented my superior system. I sent similar packages to Chase Bank and Citadel. Within 48 hours, 3 of Virex's biggest clients were gone. The stock price dropped 30% in 2 days. Tiffany called an emergency board meeting. Through the audio feed, I heard her voice cracking. "We need to find out who's behind these attacks. Someone is sabotaging us from the inside." Chase nodded eagerly. "It's probably Peter. He's bitter about being fired. I smiled and took another sip of coffee. Let them think that. The truth was so much worse. Jules had been busier than I'd imagined. The encrypted dossiers flooding Wall Street weren't just coming from me. My brilliant protégé had been sending her own packages to financial reporters, tech blogs, and cybersecurity experts across the country. Her burner phone went into a FedEx box with a simple note, "Watch this." Attached was a thumb drive containing Tiffany's father's complete video confession, along with Chase's entire Twitter history and screenshots of every line of code he'd recklessly deleted. TechCrunch received the package first. Their tech editor nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the contents. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Crypto influencer destroys $5 million security system on first day. Chase's panic was absolutely beautiful to watch through the office cameras. He started calling lawyers, frantically deleting social media posts, and demanding that Tiffany fix this mess immediately. But it was far too late. The story had grown legs and was running marathons across the internet. Every major tech blog picked up the story. Reddit exploded with discussions. LinkedIn was flooded with cybersecurity experts sharing their horror stories about unqualified management. Jules sent me a text. "Package delivered. The truth is out there." I replied, "Good work. Now comes the fun part." The whisper campaign was just beginning. By the time I was finished, everyone in the tech world would know exactly who had built Virex and who had destroyed it. The boardroom was a war zone when the 7 executives gathered for the emergency meeting. Tension filled the air like smoke as Tiffany tried desperately to explain why they'd lost 70% of their major clients in just 2 weeks. "It's coordinated sabotage," she insisted, her voice shaking with barely controlled panic. "Someone with inside knowledge is deliberately targeting us." Board member Patricia Williams, a sharp woman in her 60s who'd been with the company since the beginning, slammed her hand on the mahogany table. "The only sabotage here is your catastrophic decision to fire Peter Daley and replace him with this." She gestured dismissively at Chase, who was sweating through his expensive designer shirt. "Chase has extensive experience in emerging technologies and—" Tiffany started, but Williams cut her off. "Cryptocurrency." Patricia interrupted, her voice rising. "He's a social media influencer who tweets about digital coins and blockchain nonsense. He doesn't know the first thing about enterprise cybersecurity." That's when Williams pulled out her phone and started reading directly from the leaked technical logs. Every mistake Chase had made, every critical line of code he'd deleted, every system warning he'd ignored, it was all there in devastating black and white. The boardroom fell completely silent. Finally, Williams spoke again. "Who leaked these logs?" Tiffany's face was ghostly pale. "We don't know. But I knew. And soon, so would everyone else." The competitor espionage was almost too easy to believe. CyberShield, Virex's biggest rival, had been struggling to compete with Sentinel for years, always playing catch-up in the cybersecurity arms race. Then Chase handed them everything on a silver platter. GitHub issue thread number 48847. Need help with legacy crypto protocols in enterprise security system. Chase had posted detailed screenshots of Sentinel's core architecture, complete with proprietary algorithms, security keys, and architectural diagrams that had taken years to perfect. The tech community was stunned by his carelessness. Professional developers started screenshotting his posts before he could delete them, preserving evidence of the unprecedented security breach. Within 48 hours, CyberShield announced their new product with suspicious confidence. Sentinel 2.0, all the security of the original, with modern innovations and enhanced performance. The FTC immediately escalated their investigation. Possible national security violations, industrial espionage, corporate sabotage. The FBI was now involved. Chase's GitHub account had been public for months. Every major security firm in the world had access to Virex's most sensitive code, all because an influencer thought he was crowdsourcing help from the community. I methodically forwarded the GitHub links to every journalist covering the story. The headline practically wrote itself. CEO's fiancé accidentally leaks $5 million security code to competitors. Tiffany's company wasn't just failing, it was becoming the cautionary tale that would be taught in business schools for decades. Marisol had been the front desk receptionist for 5 years. Quiet, efficient, invisible. The perfect spy. Nobody noticed when she installed the flash drive in Chase's computer. Nobody saw her copying files to her personal account. Nobody suspected that the sweet lady who brought cookies to meetings was recording every conversation in the building. The flash drive was my design. A tiny device that looked like a regular USB port cover, but contained enough surveillance software to monitor an entire network. Once installed, it gave me access to everything: emails, documents, audio recordings, even webcam feeds. Marisol's text came at midnight. Got it. You'll want to hear this recording. The audio file was dynamite. Chase and Tiffany planning to frame me for the system failures. Tiffany suggesting they leak stories about my mental health and alcohol problems. Chase agreeing to plant evidence in my old files. They were going to destroy my reputation to save their own skins. But now I had them on tape. Every word, every lie, every scheme. The hunter had become the hunted. The recording was damning. Tiffany's voice was crystal clear. We need to make this Peter's fault. He's old, he's bitter, and no one will believe him anyway. Chase laughed. We could say he sabotaged the system before he left. Plant some evidence in his old files. Perfect, Tiffany agreed. By the time anyone figures out the truth, we'll have fixed everything and moved on. They spent 20 minutes planning my character assassination. Every lie they would tell, every piece of false evidence they would plant, every reporter they would manipulate. But they forgot one thing. I was still listening. I sent copies of the recording to Jules, to my lawyer, and to 3 different journalists. Then I sat back and waited. The story broke on a Friday. CEO caught on tape planning to frame fired employee. The audio went viral within hours. Justice for Peter started trending on Twitter. LinkedIn was flooded with posts about corporate corruption and age discrimination. Tiffany tried to claim the recording was fake, but audio experts confirmed its authenticity. The damage was done. The memory hit me like a punch to the gut. 6 months ago, in the hospital room, with machines beeping and the smell of disinfectant everywhere. Peter, the old CEO had whispered, his hand gripping mine with surprising strength. Promise me something. Protect Sentinel. Protect what we built. Even if you have to protect it from her. I'd known what he meant. Tiffany was smart but reckless, ambitious but inexperienced. She would try to change everything without understanding what she was destroying. I promise, I'd said, not knowing how prophetic those words would be. Now, watching his daughter's company collapse, I felt the weight of that promise. I wasn't just getting revenge. I was fulfilling a dying man's last wish. He'd trusted me to be the guardian of his legacy. I wouldn't let him down. The video of our conversation was the one piece of evidence I kept to myself. Some promises are too sacred to weaponize. Chase's crypto empire was built on sand, and now it was washing away. He'd been liquidating Virex stock for months, converting company assets into digital coins and hiding them in offshore wallets. The SEC got an anonymous tip about insider trading, screenshots of Chase's crypto transactions, timestamped to match major company announcements, evidence of market manipulation and securities fraud. But the real kicker was the wallet address. Chase had been so confident in his scheme that he'd used his own name in the blockchain signature. Every transaction was permanently recorded and publicly visible. The FBI raided his apartment at dawn. They found hard drives full of company data, crypto wallets containing millions in suspicious transactions, and a detailed plan to short-sell Virex stock while deliberately sabotaging the company. Chase had committed the perfect crime, except he documented everything and posted it on an immutable public ledger. The irony was beautiful. The cryptocurrency expert had been destroyed by cryptocurrency. The text messages were the final nail in the coffin. Chase's phone had been backing up to the cloud automatically, and a technical glitch had sent the entire archive to several journalists. She's just a shortcut, Chase had written to his friend Marcus. Her dad's company is the real prize. Once I'm inside, I can gut the place and sell the pieces. Another message. Tiffany thinks we're getting married. I'm just here for the money. Soon as I liquidate enough assets, I'm gone. The screenshots went viral immediately. Shortcut Gate trended worldwide. The story had everything. Corporate betrayal, romantic deception, and a villain so cartoonishly evil that people couldn't look away. Tiffany saw the messages during a board meeting. I watched through the security feed as her face went white, then red, then white again. She stood up slowly, gathered her papers, and walked out without saying a word. Chase tried to follow her, but security blocked him. His keycard had already been deactivated. The engagement was over. The company was finished. And the best part? I'd barely lifted a finger. The bank run started at 9 a.m. Eastern. Goldman Sachs terminated their contract first, followed by JP Morgan, then Wells Fargo. By noon, Virex had lost every major financial client. The employees saw the writing on the wall. Engineers started quitting en masse, posting their resignation letters on LinkedIn with hashtags like toxic leadership and never again. Jules sent her resignation directly to my email. Peter, I can't work for these people anymore. Attached is my full audit report. The company is finished. The audit was brutal. Jules had documented every security flaw, every code vulnerability, every compliance violation that Chase had created. It read like a blueprint for corporate disaster. Forbes called that afternoon. We're looking for Warden Zero. We know you're behind the leaks. Care to comment? I smiled. It was time to step out of the shadows. No comment, I said, but you might want to check the Virex employee directory from 1996. Look for the name Peter Daley. The reporter went quiet. The Peter Daley? The one who built Sentinel? The same, I said. And I think it's time people knew the whole story. Tiffany showed up at my lake house at sunset, her BMW parked crooked in my gravel driveway. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. I watched from my window as she sat in her car for 10 minutes, probably trying to work up the courage to knock. When she finally approached my door, her hands were shaking. Peter, she said when I opened it, we need to talk. I stepped onto the porch but didn't invite her in. About what? About saving the company. About fixing this mess. About, she paused, swallowing hard. About me being wrong. Wrong about what? About everything. About you. About Chase. About thinking I could run Dad's company without understanding what he'd built. I leaned against the porch railing. And what exactly do you want from me? Help, she whispered. I'll do anything, pay anything. Just please help me save what's left. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I stepped back inside. Your father trusted me to protect his legacy, I said. That's exactly what I did. I closed the door. The FBI visit was surprisingly cordial. 2 agents in dark suits, drinking my coffee and asking polite questions about cybersecurity and corporate espionage. We understand you might have information about Virex systems, Agent Rodriguez said. I slid an encrypted hard drive across my kitchen table. Everything you need is on there. Audio recordings, financial documents, evidence of securities fraud, and industrial espionage. Agent Chen opened her laptop and started reviewing the files. Her eyebrows rose higher with each document. This is comprehensive, she said. How did you obtain all this? Honeypot security protocols, I explained. Standard practice for protecting critical systems. When someone tries to tamper with protected code, the system automatically creates evidence logs. It was technically true. I just hadn't mentioned that I designed the system to record everything. Agent Rodriguez shook my hand. This will do just fine, Mr. Daley. Thank you for your cooperation. After they left, I sat on my porch and watched the sunset. Justice was coming. Chase's arrest at O'Hare was spectacular. Airport security, FBI agents, and enough media to make it look like a movie premiere. He'd been trying to flee to Dubai with a backpack full of hard drives and crypto wallet keys. The TSA scanner had flagged the electronics. When they opened his bag, they found unencrypted Virex IP, recordings of bribery attempts, and a detailed plan to disappear into the Middle East cryptocurrency scene. His breakdown on live television was beautiful. Crying, begging, claiming he was the real victim. I was just trying to help the company. Peter Daley set me up. The extradition hearing was even better. Chase's lawyer tried to argue that his client was mentally unstable, but the mountain of evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, blockchain transactions, recorded conversations, everything pointed to a calculated scheme to destroy Virex from within. Social media exploded with memes and jokes. #Chase to the airport became a trending hashtag. Someone even created a crypto coin called Fleeing Chase that crashed immediately. The poetic justice was perfect. The crypto influencer had been defeated by his own technology. The board meeting was an execution. 7 executives sitting in judgment of the woman who destroyed their company in less than 3 months. Patricia Williams read the charges like a prosecutor: breach of fiduciary duty, negligent hiring practices, destruction of company assets, conspiracy to commit fraud. Tiffany sat in silence, her face pale and drawn. She'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. The vote was unanimous. Remove Tiffany Moore as CEO, effective immediately. But the real blow came next. Williams pulled out her phone and started reading from my manifesto. The final message from Warden Zero that had been sent to every major news outlet. Leadership isn't inherited, she read. It's earned through competence, integrity, and respect. A true leader builds others up rather than tearing them down. A true leader understands that loyalty flows both ways, and that trust once broken can never be fully repaired. The room was silent. Then Williams delivered the final sentence. Some people are born to lead, others are born to follow. The wise know which they are. Tiffany stood up slowly and walked out. She didn't look back. The Forbes article hit like a nuclear bomb. The ghost engineer who toppled a tech giant was the headline, with my photo from the company directory beneath it. The story laid out everything. My military background, my role in building Sentinel, my 28 years of loyal service, and the betrayal that triggered my revenge. It read like a techno thriller, except every word was true. The tech world exploded. LinkedIn was flooded with posts about ageism in corporate America. Twitter hashtags like Ghost Engineer and Peter Daley trended for days. Cybersecurity experts praised my elegant use of honeypot traps and hidden surveillance. But the best part was the flood of job offers. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, every major tech company wanted to hire the man who'd single-handedly destroyed a billion-dollar corporation. I turned them all down. I had other plans. The article's final line was perfect. Peter Daley didn't just expose corporate corruption. He demonstrated that in the digital age, the most dangerous enemy is often the one you can't see. I was no longer just Peter Daley. I was a legend. The release of Sentinel 2.0 was my masterpiece. Not the code, that was just programming. The real artistry was in the timing and the message. I released it for free to every nonprofit and community bank in America. No licensing fees, no corporate contracts, no strings attached. The only requirement was signing an ethics pledge. Use this technology to protect people, not exploit them. The download numbers were staggering. Within 48 hours, over 10,000 organizations had implemented my security protocols. Credit unions, hospitals, schools, everyone who'd been priced out of enterprise security suddenly had access to the best protection money couldn't buy. Microsoft's offer came next. $1.2 billion for exclusive rights to Sentinel 2.0. I responded with a 2-word email, not interested. The tech blogs went crazy. Peter Daley turns down billion-dollar buyout. The principles of the ghost engineer. When money can't buy integrity. I'd made my point. Some things were worth more than money. The letter arrived on expensive stationery, handwritten in elegant script. Tiffany's penmanship was as perfect as everything else about her appearance, but the words were raw and honest. Peter, it began, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I destroyed everything Dad built. I betrayed your trust in your years of service. I was arrogant, foolish, and cruel. She went on to explain her new project, a STEM education program for underprivileged girls, funded by what remained of her inheritance. She wanted to teach young women that they could build technology instead of just consuming it. I'll never be the leader Dad was, she wrote, but maybe I can be someone who helps others become better than I ever was. The letter ended with a simple request. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to build something real this time. I read it twice, then walked to my desk and wrote a check for $500,000. Anonymous donation to the Tiffany Moore Foundation for Girls in STEM. Maybe redemption was possible after all. The knock on my door came at sunrise. Jules stood on my porch with a duffel bag and a nervous smile. I was hoping you might need a partner, she said. I've been thinking about what you said, about building something that matters. I invited her in for coffee. We talked about the future, about the kind of company we could build together. Not another corporate empire, but something different. Something that put people before profits. Daley cybersecurity consulting, I suggested. Too formal, Jules countered. How about Warden Solutions, like Warden Zero? I smiled. I like it, but we do things differently. No corporate clients who can't sign ethics agreements, no shortcuts, no compromises. Agreed. Jules raised her coffee mug. To building something worth protecting. We spent the day planning our new company. Small teams, personal relationships, careful vetting of every client. The kind of business that had built America before corporations became factories for greed. By sunset, we had our first client, a small-town bank that needed protection from ransomware attacks. The fee was modest, but the mission was clear. We were building something real. The sunset painted my lake in shades of gold and crimson. I stood on my porch, watching the water lap against the shore, thinking about castles and kingdoms and the price of loyalty. In my hand was a printed copy of the last line of code I'd ever written for Virex. Trust is earned through consistency, protected through vigilance, and lost through betrayal. Simple words, but they'd cost $1 billion company everything. My phone buzzed with messages, job offers, interview requests, speaking engagements. The world wanted to hear from the ghost engineer, but I wasn't interested in fame or fortune. I'd already won the only prize that mattered, the knowledge that I'd kept my promise to a dying man. Jules joined me on the porch, laptop in hand. Our first client wants to schedule a meeting, she said. Small bank in Ohio? They've been hit by 3 ransomware attacks this year. Schedule it, I said. And Jules? Make sure they understand our terms. We protect people, not profits. She nodded and headed inside to make the call. I looked out at the lake one more time, then spoke the words that had become my motto. When you spend your life building castles, make sure they can't be stolen, only earned. The ghost had become a guardian, and this time, I was protecting something worth saving.